Hello, Steve White, TrekBoy89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I just watched the second episode of Season 2 of Lower Decks. I just watched the first episode last night because I procrastinated so long about it, so now I've had two in a row, so yay. Okay, so this episode is kind of weird because it started off bad and something happened towards the end which was actually kind of surprising. Now, getting to the actual story, starts off with some new guy, some hot black guy coming on to the team, I guess, to replace Boilerma. And of course, Mariner has to outdo him at everything because that's just her issues. So they're like competing with like how hot they can use the sonic shower, and they're basically frying everyone. They have to run out, and it's just another example of I just really don't like the character. I don't see how anyone can or is supposed to. She's just tedious. So she goes out. So basically, the crew gets called into sort through a collector's collection. This guy has died. Another collector wants his stuff, but he doesn't want to get atomized by something in the collection, so he sends Starfleet in to go through it for him. So they're basically making fun of collectors and having a dig at Star Trek fans and sci-fi fans who are all collectors and that, and all the little jokes about hoarders and stuff like that. It's all pretty typical of what this show does. It just makes fun of the Star Trek audience, which I don't get. They don't get the point. Eventually it makes itself clear. But so they're going through and you see a lot of stuff. You see like Odo's like pail he slept in, and like I think you see the salt vampire and like the device that Scotty used in like season 3 of Star Trek, and there's like a giant Starfleet skeleton in like an original series uniform, which I'm like, what was that from? I have no idea. But yeah, so they're going through this, and eventually an alarm gets set off, and a hologram comes on and says, if you're seeing me, basically you're trying to steal my stuff, prepare to die. So they have to escape the ship, basically. And what set it off was the actual collector was stealing Kalos's sex helmet. So, you know, Tenny calls him a pervert, but then says no judgment, so no judgment. So, okay, so there's two stories here. The first one is this one. The second one, and I can't remember when they actually start to switch backwards and forwards, but they go on to the Titan with Riker commanding. It's all action all the time, and Boilerma's freaking out and not feeling like he fits in. Obviously not fitting in because he's real Starfleet. He's there for exploration. He's there doing everything by the book. The other guys are all trying to be heroes and be gung-ho, and he really doesn't fit in there. And why he would have ever been assigned there, I don't know. So he's struggling with that, and they have to infiltrate a Pac-led, they're taking over a mine, and they have to go in and try and sort that out. So they send in a shuttle, all Star Trek 5-like, where they're, you know, sneaking in. Back with the other lot, they, the Dindy and Ruffledge? God, why can't I say his name? They are sitting there basically while the two command officers, I guess, of the team are just arguing, competing, and basically pulling their, you know what, out to measure, basically. And they're just getting deeper and deeper into trouble. And the other guy is actually making real suggestions, and basically he does chew her out quite a lot and basically say, you're just here for attention, you just want everyone to think you're a gung-ho and a hero and all this, and, you know, you're just making things harder and taking risks you don't need. And she's like, well, I don't want to do it safe. And he's like, well, what about them? What about the other people? Maybe they don't have a death wish. And she's like, oh, don't act like you're just thinking about them, blah, blah, blah. And she smacks this security device, which does kind of look like a vacuum cleaner, the little ones that travel around the carpet and are kind of creepy. So, of course, they all come after them, so they've got another problem. So she does actually realize, I just cause problems when I'm doing this. And he sort of realizes he was in the wrong as well, and they both sort of basically end up giving command over to Dindy and Ruffledge. God, why can't I remember his name now? Oh my God. I want to say Ruffledge. It's not Ruffledge. Oh my God. Why am I suddenly not remembering this guy's name? I want to say Rofferson. It's not Rofferson. God. Okay, I'm just not going to mention the guy's name again. He's actually my favourite character out of the show. I actually like him. I don't know why this is happening to me. But they come up with another reason to get out. They actually use a science reason to actually use some of the bones that can be liquefied and become acidic so they can actually burn through the water to escape and blah, blah, blah. So they follow them and they actually get out. Now back onto the Titan, they go down to the planet, they get caught out, they get stuck, they can't beam out because of a certain field. And while they're preparing to die, and these guys are all gung-ho preparing to die, they'll basically Borlamer is like, I didn't get into Starfleet for action. I got into explore. I got into learn, because they're making that other thing they're doing is they're making fun of the Enterprise D the whole time, saying, "Oh, how could Riker be on that? Should be so boring. It would have been 7 years of classical music and exploration." And it was just really insulting because Star Trek fans, nerds, that's what they like Star Trek for. The old Star Trek fans, that's what they like Star Trek for the exploration, for the intellectual side of the show, the philosophy, all that stuff, not just the phaser fights and aliens. But these guys are all about the phaser fights and the aliens. And they're very much Star Wars and very much New Trek. And they're absolutely trashing original Star Trek for a big section of the show. But then the shocking thing happens. Borlamer actually gives a little speech about how he was here for exploration in the first place. That's why he's here. He doesn't want to die for some, action. And they actually go, wow, I got into this to study Moss, and I got into this for this reason. And they're like, well, thank you for reminding us why we're here and that Starfleet isn't all about just mindless action all the time. And I'm like, God, they're actually acknowledging what Star Trek is, and perhaps it might have gone a bit astray in this case. And then he's like, he mentions Thomas Riker, because they're talking about Riker as that as well. And he says, and that's when he gets the idea to basically play with the machine and the field so they can beam out. And they do beam them out, but then Borlamer gets stuck. They eventually beam him out, and then later on a shuttle shows up with Borlamer in it because he's escaped, because he actually didn't beam out. He got left behind. He has a transporter double just like Riker now. So they decide one of them goes back to the Cerritos, which is the one who was there in the first place, and the clone stays, and he gets along with Riker, who basically he's like a little protege following him. And Borlamer leaves a little bit resentful, I think, of the fact that his double's going to do much better on that ship than he did. And he goes back to the Cerritos, where the guys have escaped. They managed to escape. The captain who was going through what did they call it? A command evaluation. She got told she micromanages, so she was like, I'm not going to micromanage. So she wasn't checking in on them, so she didn't know anything had gone wrong. And eventually they just show up in some escape pods. And she's like, see, this is what happens when I don't micromanage. And they end up back on the ship and everything's fine. And then Borlamer comes back and he kind of chases out the new guy, who kind of walks off a bit resentfully because there was nowhere for Borlamer to sit down. So he got up and then they just started talking like he wasn't even there, and he just walked off. Borlamer sort of gets a bit of bad treatment from Mariner because he left them. He abandoned her because it's all about her. But he seems to be happy to be back, and it does seem to be where he fits. And I kind of thought this would happen. I didn't see the double twist and being able to have him on the Titan and the Cerritos, but I mean, who could have seen that? So yeah, so I found it really interesting, and I must admit, I did actually react emotionally when he was actually defending Star Trek and defending Starfleet, and they actually respected him. Like when he left the ship, they came and basically said, boldly go, and they're actually respecting his decision and his version of Starfleet and the version of Starfleet he wanted to be a part of. And it was almost a validation of Star Trek, which this show hasn't done so far. All it's done is trash Star Trek and insult Star Trek and be like Galaxy Quest, but licensed to actually be Star Trek, rather than that was more like a fan film of Star Trek, making fun of it. And it's been fairly insulting as a Star Trek fan, and the episode really started off badly doing that on two levels, insulting collectors and insulting the D and the Next Generation, which is probably the best Star Trek. As much as I love the original Star Trek, the D was more of a pure version of Star Trek that Gene was able to create without the network interference that created a lot of the issues that people make fun of the original Star Trek for. Like the Woman of the Week, the Alien of the Week, and a lot of the over-the-top sort of action and kung fu fights and stuff like that. The things that people mimic and make fun of from the original Star Trek were mostly things that the network executives forced onto Gene. He didn't have that problem when doing Next Gen syndication. So they were making fun of all that, and I really was being annoyed by it. And then they actually turned around and had him defend it and validate it and have it be acknowledged as something valuable, just as valuable as the sort of new Trek Star Wars version of Star Trek and the action gung-ho mindless sort of version of Star Trek that we've seen ever since the Kelvin films. So it was really a really weird episode. I felt emotional and validated and insulted and condescended to at the same time in the same episode. I think I laughed at one thing though. I don't know what it was because I don't find the show particularly funny, but I laughed at something. Someone just did some random little thing. And it's usually just the random little comedy moments that do actually make me laugh in the show, and that's about it. But I'm going to go. I've rambled on long enough, but this is my COVID therapy, my YouTube therapy. Thank you for participating. I'm going to go back to, I think I have to watch the He-Man preview for the new animated series and look at what they're doing to Skeletor. Oh my. But yes, did I say it already? Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the episode. Thanks. Bye.